The entire room erupted in laughter. But not because of a joke. They were laughing at me. A project manager who had fought tooth and nail to survive and prove herself, reduced to a punchline because of my weight. And the one laughing the loudest? My direct supervisor. But what they didn't know was that in this long game, I would be the one laughing last. That day in the conference room changed everything, not just for me, but for every person who'd ever been made to feel less than human in that office. My name is Rachel Morgan, and at 34, I've learned that corporate America has a peculiar way of measuring worth, and it rarely has anything to do with your actual value. I work at Stonebridge Analytics, a mid-sized data consulting firm nestled in the gleaming glass towers of downtown Denver, where the Rocky Mountains watch over our daily corporate battles like silent witnesses. Every morning, I take the RTD light rail from my modest apartment in Aurora, watching the city wake up through scratched windows. The commute gives me 45 minutes to transform from the daughter of a factory worker and a hotel housekeeper into a polished project manager who speaks the language of data visualization and predictive modeling. My parents never understood what I do. Computers and numbers. My mother tells her friends at church, but they understand the pride of seeing their daughter in an office instead of scrubbing floors. Growing up in Commerce City, in a neighborhood where English was the second language and dreams were luxuries we couldn't afford, I learned early that my body would always speak before I could. Too big, too soft, too much. These labels followed me through Jefferson High School like shadows. While other girls worried about prom dates, I buried myself in AP statistics and calculus, finding comfort in numbers that never judged. Equations that didn't care about the size of my hips. College at CU Denver was my escape route, funded by scholarships, student loans, and weekend shifts at a call center. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in data science, but even as I walked across that stage, I could feel the eyes, not on my academic achievements, but on how my gown stretched across my frame. Stonebridge Analytics hired me 5 years ago, and I've exceeded every performance metric they've thrown at me. My client retention rate sits at 94%, the highest in my department. I've saved our clients millions through optimization strategies and predictive analytics. My technical skills are undeniable. My presentations are thorough. My insights sharp. Yet none of that seems to matter to Amanda Brooks. Amanda, even thinking her name makes my jaw clench. She joined Stonebridge 2 years ago as our senior director, brought in from a competitor with promises to streamline operations and elevate our corporate image. 41 years old, with the kind of severe blonde bob that costs $300 to maintain, and a wardrobe of designer suits that whisper money with every gesture. She runs 5 miles every morning. She makes sure everyone knows this, and follows a keto diet she discusses ad nauseum during lunch meetings while eyeing everyone else's meals with barely concealed disgust. From day one, Amanda made it clear that image mattered as much as output in her department. She instituted Wellness Wednesdays and Fit Friday challenges, always optional but somehow mandatory if you wanted to stay in her good graces. She'd make comments disguised as concern. "Rachel, have you tried intermittent fasting? It does wonders for mental clarity." Or, "We want to make sure our client-facing team projects vitality and energy." But it wasn't just about weight. Amanda had a particular vision of what a Stonebridge employee should be, preferably male, definitely athletic, ideally under 30. She fawned over Brad from business development, a former college lacrosse player who couldn't build a pivot table if his life depended on it. She promoted Tyler from analytics after 3 months, despite his mediocre performance reviews, because he embodied the Stonebridge spirit. Code 4, he looked good in slim-fit shirts and had the metabolism of a hummingbird. Meanwhile, she'd schedule my performance reviews during lunch, knowing I'd either have to skip eating or appear unprofessional. She'd assign me to basement conference rooms for client calls, saying the lighting was better for video. Though we all knew she didn't want clients to see me as the face of our team. She'd forget to include me in team photos, claiming technical difficulties, then post them on LinkedIn with captions about our dynamic, energetic team. I documented everything in a small notebook I kept locked in my desk drawer. Every slight, every comment, every forgotten invitation to strategic meetings. Not because I planned to do anything with it, at first, but because I needed to remind myself I wasn't imagining things. This wasn't just workplace friction or a personality clash. This was systematic, deliberate, and cruel. The Colorado sun sets behind the mountains now as I write this, casting long shadows across my apartment. Tomorrow, there's a critical meeting with our biggest client, Davidson Industries. I've prepared for weeks, built a comprehensive strategy that could secure a 3-year contract extension worth $8 million. Amanda will be there. Of course, ready to take credit if it goes well, ready to lay blame if it doesn't. I don't know yet that tomorrow will be the day everything changes. That tomorrow, Amanda will cross a line that can't be uncrossed. That tomorrow, the daughter of immigrants who cleaned offices will begin her journey to cleaning house in a very different way. But tonight, I'm just Rachel Morgan, sitting at my second-hand desk, reviewing slides and trying to ignore the voice in my head that sounds suspiciously like my high school bullies. Like Amanda. Like everyone who's ever made me feel like I don't belong. Tomorrow, that voice will finally push too far. The Davidson Industries meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the executive conference room, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Denver skyline. I arrived 30 minutes early, my laptop bag heavy with backup materials, my navy blazer carefully chosen to project professionalism. The presentation deck I'd refined over countless nights glowed on the screen. Strategic Data Solutions for Davidson Industries, a 3-year roadmap. By 1:55, the room had filled. Mr. Davidson himself sat at the head of the table, flanked by his CFO and operations director. Our CEO, Marcus Webb, claimed the seat to his right. Amanda positioned herself strategically at the center, where she could command attention. I stood near the screen, remote in hand, my palms slightly damp despite the air conditioning. Rachel will be walking us through our proposal, Marcus announced, nodding at me with what might have been encouragement. She's been instrumental in developing this strategy. I began strong. The first 10 minutes flowed perfectly: market analysis, competitive positioning, ROI projections. Mr. Davidson leaned forward, engaged. His CFO took notes. Even Marcus looked impressed. I could feel the room's energy shifting in my favor. That electric moment when a client realizes you truly understand their business. Then I clicked to the cost-benefit analysis slide. Before we dive into the numbers, I said, moving to the side of the screen, I want to emphasize how our predictive modeling can identify inefficiencies in your supply chain. Rachel, could you move a bit more to your left? Amanda interrupted, her voice honeyed with false concern. You're blocking the projector quite a bit. I stepped aside, though I hadn't been blocking anything. As I was saying, the predictive modeling... Actually, Amanda cut in again, this time with a little laugh. Maybe we should invest in a wider screen. Or a diet plan for the team. Though I suppose the latter would be more cost-effective than renovating our conference rooms to accommodate larger presentations. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Someone, I think it was Brad, let out a nervous chuckle. Then Tyler snorted. Within seconds, laughter rippled through the room. Not everyone. Marcus's face had gone rigid, and Mr. Davidson looked uncomfortable, but enough. Enough to transform me from a competent professional into a punchline. Amanda's eyes glittered with satisfaction as she continued, riding the wave of uncomfortable laughter. I mean, we're all about optimization here at Stonebridge, right? Maybe we should optimize everything. She gestured vaguely at my midsection, her manicured nails catching the light. My face burned. The remote trembled in my hand. 15 faces stared at me, some amused, some horrified, all waiting to see what would happen next. The presentation slide behind me, filled with my weeks of work, suddenly seemed meaningless. Everything I'd accomplished, every late night, every brilliant insight, reduced to nothing because my body didn't fit Amanda's aesthetic standards. Should we continue with the presentation? Mr. Davidson's CFO asked quietly, clearly uncomfortable with the turn the meeting had taken. Of course, Amanda said brightly, as if she hadn't just eviscerated me in front of our most important client. Rachel, do go on. Though perhaps standing further back would give everyone a better view. We want to ensure our clients can see the full picture, not just parts of it. More scattered laughter. Brad actually high-fived Tyler under the table, like we were back in some toxic high school cafeteria. I saw it all, every smirk, every avoided glance, every person who chose to either participate in or ignore my humiliation. My throat constricted. The words I'd rehearsed scattered like startled birds. The supply chain optimization, I stammered, clicking to the next slide without even looking at it. Maybe I should take over, Amanda suggested, rising from her chair with practiced grace. Rachel seems a bit overwhelmed. It happens when presentations get too heavy. Another pause, another meaningful look. The presentation material, She glided to the front, taking the remote from my numb fingers. Why don't you sit down, Rachel? Take a load off. The emphasis on load was subtle but unmistakable. I sank into the nearest chair, my carefully prepared notes forgotten. Amanda seamlessly hijacked my presentation, delivering my insights as if they were her own. She'd clearly reviewed my work beforehand, preparing for this moment. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty. It was calculated destruction. For 40 minutes, I sat there, shrinking into myself while Amanda presented my work. She occasionally threw glances my way, each one a small victory lap. The room gradually relaxed, the earlier tension dissolving as they moved on from the spectacle of my humiliation to the business at hand. By the time Mr. Davidson agreed to review our proposal, even complimenting the thorough analysis, I'd become invisible, a ghost in my own meeting. When it finally ended, people filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact with me. Marcus lingered, looking like he wanted to say something. But Amanda caught his arm, whispering something that made him nod and leave without a word. I was alone in the conference room, staring at the final slide of my presentation. Strategic Partnership Success, still glowing on the screen. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Next time, maybe let the face of the company present to major clients. We need to think about our image, BTW, great work on those slides. I sat there for another 10 minutes, until the automatic lights dimmed, assuming the room was empty. In a way, it was. The Rachel who'd walked in confident and prepared had been demolished, replaced by something else, something harder, angrier, and finally ready to fight back. That night, I opened my locked desk drawer and pulled out my notebook. But this time, I didn't just document what happened. I wrote a single word at the top of a fresh page. Evidence. The humiliation in that conference room had lit a fuse. Amanda Brooks had no idea what she'd just started. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that conference room, hearing the laughter echo off the glass walls. At 3 a.m., I gave up and sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, staring at the email Amanda had sent to the team at 11 p.m. Great team effort today with Davidson Industries. Special kudos to our analytics team for the groundwork. Not my name, just analytics team. As if I hadn't existed at all. The humiliation came in waves. First, the sharp sting of the moment itself. Amanda's words replaying with perfect clarity. Then the deeper shame that I'd just sat there, that I'd let her take my presentation, that I'd shrunk into myself like a scolded child. By dawn, something else had crystallized. Rage, cold and precise as a surgical blade. I called in sick the next day. Not because I couldn't face the office, though the thought made my stomach churn, but because I needed to think. I walked around Cheeseman Park, letting the October air clear my head, watching joggers pass by without really seeing them. Each step helped me understand what had happened wasn't just about yesterday. It was about every moment Amanda had chipped away at me, creating a pattern I'd been too close to see. That evening, I opened a new spreadsheet on my personal laptop. Not for data analysis this time, but for documentation. I created columns: date, incident, witnesses, evidence, impact. Then I began filling it in, Starting from Amanda's first day, the memories came flooding back. The time she'd asked me to skip the company photo because we need someone to handle client calls during the shoot. The email where she'd CC'd the entire team about my need to present a more polished image. The lunch meeting where she'd commented on my meal choices while Brad devoured his third burger that week without a word from her. Each incident alone seemed petty, explainable. Together, they painted a pattern of targeted harassment, but memories weren't enough. I needed proof. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize, a spy in my own life. I arrived early and stayed late, not to work, but to observe. I started using my phone's voice memo app, keeping it running in my pocket during meetings. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recordings. I'd looked it up. I forwarded emails to my personal account, building a digital trail. I took screenshots of Slack messages where Amanda made snide comments about fitting in and representing the company image. The hardest part was maintaining the facade. I had to face Amanda every day, endure her satisfied smirks, her casual cruelties. She'd grown bolder since the Davidson meeting, making comments about my lunch choices in front of others, suggesting I take the stairs, for health reasons, when we were heading to the 20th floor. Each time, I smiled tightly and said nothing, while my phone recorded everything. 3 weeks after the Davidson incident, something unexpected happened. I was working late, the office nearly empty. When I heard crying from the bathroom, I found Melissa, a junior analyst and single mother, sobbing in the last stall. She said I'm not management material. Melissa gasped between sobs. Because I had to leave early twice last month when my son was sick. She said mothers who can't prioritize work shouldn't expect promotions. I helped Melissa clean up, bought her coffee from the place downstairs, and listened, really listened. Amanda had been documenting Melissa's every absence, creating a paper trail to deny her advancement, while Brad regularly left early for his golf league without consequence. It's not just you, I said quietly. She's doing this to multiple people. Melissa's eyes widened. You too? But you're one of our best. That doesn't matter to her. What matters is that we don't fit her image. That night, I went home and researched. I learned about hostile work environment laws, about protected classes, about the difference between being mean and illegal discrimination. I discovered that weight-based harassment, while not federally protected, could be actionable when combined with gender discrimination. And Amanda's pattern showed clear gender bias, promoting underqualified men while tearing down women who didn't meet her aesthetic standards. I started reading employment law blogs, studying cases, understanding my rights. I learned that Colorado had broader protections than federal law. I found the name of an employment attorney, Sarah Martinez, who specialized in workplace discrimination. I didn't call her yet, but I saved her number. The spreadsheet grew, the recordings accumulated. I had Amanda on tape calling me, a liability to our image, and suggesting I was too emotional when I'd calmly disagreed with her in a strategy meeting. Classic gender-based stereotyping. I had emails where she praised Brad's leadership presence for the same aggressive behavior she criticized in female employees. My apartment became a war room. Legal pads covered my coffee table, filled with notes and timelines. I'd printed out every relevant email, highlighted every discriminatory phrase. I was building a case, brick by brick, that would be undeniable. The old Rachel would have internalized this abuse, would have believed maybe Amanda was right. Maybe I didn't belong. But that Rachel died in the conference room. This Rachel understood that Amanda's cruelty wasn't about my weight or my competence. It was about power, control, and a toxic vision of what a workplace should be. One night, looking at the evidence I'd gathered, I realized I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for Melissa. For every woman Amanda had deemed insufficiently decorative. For everyone who'd been made to feel less than human in those glass towers. The next morning, I walked into Stonebridge with my head high. Amanda passed me in the hall and made her usual snide comment about the elevator being faster than the stairs. I smiled, knowing her words were being recorded, adding another brick to the wall I was building around her. She had no idea that her kingdom of casual cruelty was about to crumble. She'd created her own destroyer. And I was almost ready to strike. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I was reviewing quarterly reports when I noticed discrepancies in Amanda's expense accounts. Nothing obvious, she was too smart for that. But patterns that didn't quite add up. Client dinners at restaurants that were closed on the dates claimed. Uber receipts for client meetings that conflicted with calendar records showing she was in the office. Small amounts, but frequent. The kind of thing that would slip past a cursory review but couldn't withstand real scrutiny. I cross-referenced everything, every expense Amanda had submitted over the past 18 months against our shared calendars, client records, and even restaurant websites. I called restaurants pretending to make reservations, confirming their hours of operation. I mapped Uber routes against client locations. What emerged was a pattern of systematic expense fraud, probably totaling around $15,000. But I needed more than spreadsheets. I needed corroboration. That's when I remembered Tom from accounting. Quiet, methodical Tom, who'd been moved to a basement office after questioning some expense irregularities 6 months ago. I found him eating alone in the parking garage, his usual lunch spot since Amanda had made it clear he wasn't welcome in the break room. Culture. You noticed it too, I said, sitting beside him on the concrete barrier. He looked at me warily. Noticed what? The expenses, the patterns, the things that don't add up. Tom was silent for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. I've been documenting everything, he said quietly. But who would believe me? Amanda told Marcus I was being difficult and not a team player when I raised concerns. Said I was jealous of her success. He showed me his files. Detailed analyses of not just expense fraud, but potential kickback schemes with preferred vendors. Amanda had been steering contracts to companies owned by her friends, possibly receiving compensation in return. Tom had emails, invoices, even a recorded call where Amanda pressured him to approve questionable charges. Why didn't you report this? I asked. To whom? HR reports to Marcus. And Marcus thinks Amanda walks on water. She's brought in 3 major clients. Clients she inherited from the people she pushed out, I corrected. I've been tracking that too. We sat in that garage for an hour, comparing notes. Tom had financial evidence I'd missed. I had discrimination documentation he'd never seen. Together, we had something powerful. Over the next week, I expanded my network carefully. Melissa connected me with 2 other women who'd left Stonebridge after Amanda's arrival. Both had stories, both had documentation. One had even filed an EEOC complaint that had gone nowhere because she couldn't prove a pattern. Now we could. I started recording more strategically. I'd bait Amanda with questions about professional development and advancement opportunities, knowing she'd respond with her usual venom. I got her on tape saying that certain people just aren't executive material while looking pointedly at my body. I recorded her telling Melissa that priorities need to align with company needs, not personal life dramas. The most damning recording came accidentally. I'd left my phone recording in the conference room while grabbing forgotten papers, catching Amanda with Brad and Tyler after a meeting. The fat cow actually thinks she's getting the Davidson commission. Amanda's voice crackled through my earbuds later. Like we'd let her be the face of our biggest account. I'll transfer it to Brad once the contract's signed. Isn't that Rachel's project? Tyler had asked. Projects belong to the company, not individuals. Besides, clients respond better to a certain aesthetic. Brad presents better. He looks like success. Rachel looks like she ate success for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Their laughter was clear on the recording. Brad's voice, maybe we should have weight limits for client-facing roles. Don't tempt me, Amanda replied. Though the lawyers would have a field day. No, we just make life uncomfortable enough that they leave on their own. It's cleaner that way. That night, I listened to the recording 5 times. Each replay hardened my resolve. This wasn't just personal attacks anymore. This was conspiracy to discriminate, admission of intentional harassment, and evidence of planned theft of my commission. I created backup copies of everything. One on a cloud service, one on an external drive I kept in a safety deposit box, one on a USB hidden in my apartment. I'd learned from Tom's mistake. Amanda had somehow gotten his original documentation deleted from his work computer before he could act on it. My evidence folders grew thick. Financial folder, expense fraud, vendor kickbacks, misuse of company resources, discrimination folder, 43 documented incidents of weight-based harassment, 28 examples of gender discrimination, 12 cases of retaliation against complainants, performance folder, proof that Amanda had taken credit for others' work, sabotaged competing employees, and lied about performance metrics. Audio folder, 22 recordings, including the smoking gun conversation about forcing me out. I organized everything chronologically, created summaries, built timelines. I prepared it like I would a client presentation, clear, undeniable, devastating. Sarah Martinez, the employment attorney, agreed to meet me after reviewing my initial summary. She listened to 3 recordings and reviewed a dozen documents before stopping me. "This is one of the most comprehensive cases of workplace harassment I've seen," she said. "But you need to understand, once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. Amanda will try to destroy you." "She's already trying to destroy me," I replied. "The difference is, now I'm fighting back." Sarah leaned back, studying me. "You have 2 options. We can file with the EEOC and go the legal route. Long, expensive, uncertain. Or you can take this to your CEO and board first. Give them a chance to act. The financial fraud alone should terrify them. Add the discrimination liability, and any competent leadership would act immediately. What if they don't? Then we file the biggest discrimination and fraud lawsuit Stonebridge has ever seen. With this evidence, they'll settle before it ever sees a courtroom. No company wants this going public." I left Sarah's office with a plan, but I needed one more thing, the perfect moment to strike. Amanda had taught me the importance of timing when she'd humiliated me in front of Davidson. Now it was my turn to choose the battlefield. The opportunity would come sooner than expected. The quarterly board meeting was in 2 weeks, where Amanda would present our department's success to the board of directors. She'd stand in front of them, taking credit for my work, basking in glory built on others' misery. She had no idea that her moment of triumph would become her downfall. The alliance formed gradually, like sediment settling into rock. It started with Melissa and Tom, but word spread in whispers through the shadows of Stonebridge, the places Amanda never looked, the basement offices, the early morning break room, the parking garage where the undesirables ate lunch. James from IT approached me first, catching me by the printer at 7 a.m. when the floor was empty. "I heard you're documenting things," he said quietly, feeding paper into the machine. "I have server logs showing Amanda accessed personnel files she had no authorization to view, including yours, right before your performance reviews." "Why would you risk helping me?" I asked. He lifted his sleeve, revealing faded scars from skin grafts. "Car accident, 3 years ago. Amanda told me I was too disturbing for client meetings. She tried to transfer me to night shift. Marcus stopped her, but barely. He handed me a USB drive. Everything's on there. Password is Justice 2024. Then came Linda from sales, a brilliant woman in her 50s who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times since Amanda's arrival. She told me I was past my prime and should make room for fresh energy. Linda said over coffee in a diner 2 miles from the office. Meanwhile, she promoted Brad, who can't close a deal without my prep work. Linda had recordings too. Amanda discussing retirement strategies for older employees, calling women over 40 declining assets, age discrimination to add to our growing list. The most unexpected ally was Derek, one of Amanda's supposed golden boys. Young, fit, conventionally attractive, everything Amanda claimed to value. He found me working late one Thursday, the office dim except for my desk lamp. "She's not just cruel to people like you," he said, pulling up a chair. "She makes us complicit, forces us to laugh at her jokes, participate in her harassment. You know what she told me? That if I didn't play ball with her culture, she'd make sure I never worked in Denver again. Derek showed me text messages where Amanda had pressured him to take credit for Melissa's work, threatened him when he refused, then love-bombed him with promises of promotion if he understood how the game is played. I've been applying to other jobs for months, he admitted, but I'll testify if you need me to. Our group grew to 12 people, each with evidence, each with stories. We met in secret, usually at Tom's apartment in Lakewood, far from anyone who might recognize us. His living room became our war room. Walls covered with timelines, organizational charts showing Amanda's network of enablers and victims. We discovered Amanda's pattern went back years, across multiple companies. Linda found a LinkedIn group for survivors of toxic bosses where 3 people from Amanda's previous company described identical behavior. One had won a settlement with an NDA, but she connected us with another who could speak freely. She destroyed our department, the woman told me over a video call. 7 people quit in 6 months. HR did nothing until she got caught falsifying a performance review to fire someone who'd complained about her. Even then, they just let her resign with a good reference. I realized we weren't just building a case. We were exposing a serial predator who moved from company to company, leaving destroyed careers in her wake. Melissa became our researcher, using her analyst skills to map Amanda's entire network. She found connections between Amanda and the vendors getting suspicious contracts, college roommates, former colleagues, a cousin. The kickback scheme was more extensive than Tom had imagined. Tom handled the financial analysis, creating visualizations that made the fraud undeniable. Bar graphs showing expense patterns, network diagrams of vendor relationships, projections of financial loss to the company. It's over $100,000 when you include the inflated vendor contracts, he calculated. That's felony territory. Linda used her sales connections to discreetly investigate whether clients had complained about Amanda. She found 3 who'd requested not to work with her directly, citing unprofessional behavior and inappropriate comments. Davidson's CFO, it turned out, had been deeply uncomfortable with the meeting where I was humiliated but hadn't known how to address it. We created a shared drive, encrypted and backed up multiple ways. Everyone contributed their evidence, their stories, their documentation. The folder grew to over 500 files, emails, recordings, financial documents, testimonies, but we also supported each other. When Amanda reduced Melissa to tears over a minor error, blaming her mommy brain, I was there with tissues and rage. When Tom was excluded from a critical meeting about the systems he'd built, James helped him remotely access the presentation anyway. When Linda was told she was too old to understand modern analytics, Derek publicly praised her experience in the next team meeting, forcing Amanda to backtrack. We became a shadow organization within Stonebridge, protecting each other, gathering strength. Amanda noticed something. She became more paranoid, more careful with her words in larger meetings. But one-on-ones were still her hunting ground, and we kept recording. The breaking point came when Amanda hired her nephew as a consultant at $500 per hour to do work that was already part of Brad's job description. Tom caught it in the invoices, Linda confirmed the family connection, and James found emails where Amanda instructed accounting to hide the expense in different budget lines. "This is it," Sarah Martinez said when I presented our complete case. "This isn't just a hostile work environment anymore. This is fraud, conspiracy, and multiple federal violations. Any board of directors that doesn't act on this is opening themselves to massive liability." We set our target, the quarterly board meeting on November 15th. Amanda would present at 2 p.m., taking credit for the department's success, including the Davidson contract I'd secured. But at 1:30 p.m., each board member would receive a package, hand-delivered by courier to ensure receipt. The night before, our alliance met one final time. 12 people bound by shared trauma and shared purpose. Some would leave Stonebridge regardless of the outcome. Others hoped to rebuild it into something better. But all of us wanted the same thing, for Amanda Brooks to finally face consequences. "Whatever happens tomorrow," I said, looking at each of them, "you've all shown incredible courage. She tried to make us feel worthless, but we've proven we're stronger than her cruelty." Melissa raised her coffee mug. To the alliance of the underestimated, we clinked mugs, a ragtag army of the dismissed and demeaned, ready to bring down a tyrant with the most dangerous weapon of all, the truth. Meeting Sarah Martinez in her downtown office felt like preparing for battle. Her walls were lined with law books and framed settlements, victories against companies that thought they were untouchable. She reviewed our evidence for 3 hours, occasionally pausing to replay particularly damning recordings. "This is a nuclear bomb," she said finally, removing her glasses. "But we need to be strategic about detonation. Colorado's employment law gives us multiple avenues, but timing is everything." She pulled out a whiteboard, mapping our legal strategy. "First, we establish the pattern of discrimination. Your recordings of Amanda explicitly stating she wants certain people out based on appearance, that's gold. The gender discrimination is clear-cut. The age discrimination Linda documented is textbook. But the financial fraud? That's what will terrify them most." "Why?" Tom asked. "Because discrimination cases can drag on, get settled quietly. Financial fraud involving vendor kickbacks and embezzlement. That triggers criminal investigation. SEC involvement if they're publicly traded. Insurance companies will run screaming. No board member wants that exposure." Sarah structured our approach like a 3-act play. Act 1. Present the evidence to the board, giving them opportunity to act. Act 2. If they failed to respond appropriately, file formal complaints with the EEOC and Colorado Civil Rights Division. Act 3. The nuclear option. A lawsuit naming not just Amanda, but Stonebridge and potentially board members for negligent supervision. "But here's the key," Sarah emphasized. "We need Amanda to not know what's coming. If she gets wind of this, she'll start destroying evidence, intimidating witnesses. Can your group maintain silence?" We could. We'd become experts at suffering in silence. Sarah drafted a formal complaint letter, 20 pages of documented harassment, discrimination, and fraud, each allegation supported by evidence, testimonies, and recordings. She included transcripts of the most damaging conversations, financial analyses showing the embezzlement, and a timeline demonstrating Stonebridge's failure to act on previous complaints. "We're asking for Amanda's immediate termination, a forensic audit of her financial dealings, and compensation for all affected employees," Sarah explained. "We're also demanding systemic changes, independent HR oversight, mandatory discrimination training, and a third-party review of promotion practices." But Sarah wanted more than paperwork. "Rachel, I need you to keep working normally. Keep documenting. If Amanda does anything retaliatory before the board meeting, it only strengthens our case." The next 2 weeks tested every ounce of my composure. Amanda seemed to sense something, becoming increasingly aggressive. She accidentally deleted my access to the Davidson account files. She scheduled mandatory team meetings during my lunch breaks. She even suggested to Marcus that I might benefit from a performance improvement plan, despite my exceeding all metrics. I documented everything while maintaining my facade. My alliance members did the same, each playing their role while burning inside. Derek deserved an Oscar for laughing at Amanda's cruel jokes while secretly recording them. Melissa somehow smiled through Amanda's daily degradations while forwarding every hostile email to our shared drive. 3 days before the board meeting, Amanda made a critical mistake. She sent an email to Brad, copying Tyler, outlining how they'd redistribute my accounts when Rachel inevitably flames out. She detailed taking my Davidson commission and giving it to Brad as a retention bonus. She even joked about hosting a farewell party, where they'd serve only salad in honor of what Rachel should have been eating. Brad, feeling guilty, or perhaps sensing which way the wind was blowing, forwarded it to Derek. Derek sent it to me. Sarah called it the most beautiful evidence of premeditated retaliation I've ever seen. We prepared information packages for each board member, bound documents containing our evidence, USB drives with recordings, and Sarah's contact information. Sarah hired a courier service to deliver them simultaneously to board members' offices at exactly 1:30 p.m. on November 15th, 30 minutes before Amanda's presentation. Some will call Marcus immediately, Sarah predicted. Others will start listening to recordings. By the time Amanda walks into that boardroom, at least half will know what she really is. The night before, I couldn't eat. Melissa called, equally nervous. What if they don't care? What if they protect her? Then we burn it all down, I replied. Sarah has reporters at the Denver Post and 9 News ready to run stories. We'll file our EEOC complaints publicly. We'll make Stonebridge toxic to any decent employee or client. Sarah had coached me on one final element. If you get called into that board meeting, and you might, don't gloat, don't show anger, be professional, factual, and devastating. Let the evidence speak. The morning of November 15th arrived gray and cold, fitting for an execution. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I'd bought for client presentations but rarely wore because Amanda always found reasons to keep me in the background. I thought about the woman who'd sat humiliated in that conference room weeks ago. She'd been ashamed of taking up space. Today, I would take up exactly as much space as I deserved. At 1:25 p.m., I sat at my desk, pretending to work while watching the clock. My phone was recording, as always. Amanda walked past, heading to prepare for her triumph, wearing a white designer suit that probably cost more than some employees made in a month. Big presentation today? I asked innocently. She paused, looking back with that familiar sneer. Some of us are meant for boardrooms, Rachel. Others are meant for back offices. It's just nature's way. I smiled. You're absolutely right, Amanda. People do end up exactly where they belong. She laughed, that cutting sound I'd heard so many times. Glad you're finally accepting reality. Maybe there's hope for you yet. At 1:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Packages delivered. I watched Amanda disappear into the elevator, heading to the boardroom. She had no idea she was walking into her professional funeral, dressed perfectly for the occasion in white. At 2:07 p.m., my desk phone rang. Marcus's assistant, her voice strained. Rachel, you're needed in the boardroom, immediately. The elevator ride felt eternal. Each floor marker was a heartbeat, a step closer to confrontation. I'd imagined this moment countless times, but reality felt surreal. My phone was still recording in my pocket. Sarah had said to document everything until the very end. The boardroom doors were closed. I could hear raised voices inside, Amanda's sharp tone cutting through deeper rumbles of male voices. I knocked once and entered. The scene was chaos barely contained by corporate decorum. Amanda stood at the presentation screen, her perfect white suit now seeming like armor that had cracked. Her face was flushed, her carefully styled hair slightly mussed as if she'd been running her hands through it. Board members sat around the table, several with our evidence packages open before them. One had his laptop out, earbuds in, listening to recordings. Marcus stood near the window, his face gray. Rachel, sit down. Amanda's eyes locked on mine, and I saw the exact moment she understood. The sneer transformed into something feral. You, she hissed. This is your doing. Ms. Morgan. The board chairman, Walter Harrison, interrupted. We've asked you here because you're central to these allegations. Is this your documentation? I sat carefully, placing my hands flat on the table. Yes, along with 11 other employees who've experienced similar treatment. Lies! Amanda exploded. She's bitter because she doesn't have what it takes. Look at her. She's trying to destroy me because I hold high standards. High standards. I kept my voice level. Is that what you call expense fraud? Vendor kickbacks? Stealing commissions from employees whose work you take credit for? Walter raised his hand for silence. Ms. Brooks, we've listened to several recordings. Would you like to explain your comment about making employees uncomfortable enough to quit? Or your plan to redistribute Ms. Morgan's accounts before any performance issue exists? Amanda's mouth opened and closed. Those were taken out of context. There's 3 hours of recordings. Another board member, Patricia Chen, interjected. Hard to claim context issues with that much material. May I asked Walter. He nodded. I pulled out my phone, found the file. Amanda's voice filled the room. The fat cow actually thinks she's getting the Davidson commission. Like we'd let her be the face of our biggest account. The recording continued. Brad's laughter, Tyler's suggestions about weight limits, Amanda's admission about making people miserable enough to leave. It's cleaner that way. Silence descended like a physical weight. That's doctored. Amanda stammered. Deep fakes are. We have the metadata, Tom said from the doorway. I hadn't heard him enter. Behind him stood Melissa, Linda, James, and Derek. Timestamps, location data, device signatures. I ran forensic analysis on every file. They're authentic. You coordinated this? Marcus finally spoke, looking at me with something between awe and fear. We documented truth, I replied. Amanda coordinated her own downfall through discrimination, fraud, and creating a hostile work environment that's destroyed multiple careers. Patricia Chen picked up a paper. Ms. Brooks, there's also the matter of $15,000 in fraudulent expenses and $100,000 in suspicious vendor contracts, including hiring your nephew as a consultant at rates that suggest embezzlement. Amanda's face went white. I want my lawyer. That would be advisable, Walter said coldly. Security is waiting outside to escort you to your office. You have 30 minutes to collect personal items under supervision. Your corporate access has been revoked. You can't do this. Amanda turned on me, stepping forward aggressively. You disgusting! Stop! Walter's voice cut like ice. Another word, and we'll add assault to the criminal charges we're considering. Security. 2 guards entered. Amanda looked around wildly, seeking support. Brad and Tyler, who'd been called in earlier, avoided her gaze. Marcus stared at his shoes. The board members' faces were stone. As security flanked her, Amanda made one last attempt. She's manipulating all of you. Can't you see? People like her, they're jealous of success, of those of us who what? Melissa stepped forward. Who actually do the work while you steal credit? Who maintain client relationships while you insult them behind their backs? Who keep this company running while you poison its culture? Amanda's perfect facade finally shattered completely. Her face contorted with rage, but the guards were already guiding her toward the door. At the threshold, she turned back. This isn't over, Rachel. I'll sue you for defamation. I'll destroy your career. You'll never. Ms. Brooks. Sarah Martinez entered, having been waiting in the hallway. I represent Ms. Morgan and 11 other Stonebridge employees. Any further contact with my clients will be considered harassment and added to our existing claims. I'd also advise you that recording someone without consent is legal in Colorado, especially when documenting workplace crimes. Amanda's eyes widened as she recognized the implications. Criminal charges, civil lawsuits, professional destruction. The guards escorted her out. Through the boardroom windows, we watched them walk her across the open office floor. Every employee had somehow found a reason to be at their desk, watching. Someone started a slow clap, then another. By the time Amanda reached the elevator, half the office was applauding her removal. Ms. Morgan. Walter turned to me. We owe you and your colleagues an apology. This should never have happened. Marcus has submitted his resignation for failing to provide proper oversight. Marcus nodded, looking older than his 58 years. I should have seen it, should have listened when concerns were raised. We'll need your team's cooperation for the investigation, Patricia added. And we'd like to discuss compensation for what you've endured. We want systemic change, I said. New HR policies, independent oversight, protection for whistleblowers, and fair compensation for everyone Amanda harmed. Walter nodded. Sarah, I assume you'll handle negotiations? With pleasure. Sarah smiled like a shark. As the board members filed out to deal with the crisis, my alliance gathered around me. We stood in the boardroom where I'd been humiliated, where Amanda had thought she'd broken me. Is it over? Melissa asked. Her part is, I replied, watching through the window as Amanda's white suit disappeared into the elevator for the last time. Ours is just beginning. Derek raised an imaginary glass. To Rachel, who showed us that standing up doesn't require standing alone. We stood there, a group of people Amanda had dismissed as worthless, in the boardroom she'd never thought we deserved to enter. The city sparkled beyond the windows, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 6 months later, I sat in the same boardroom, but everything had changed. The afternoon sun painted Denver's skyline gold through the windows, and I was no longer a visitor here. The nameplate on the table read, Rachel Morgan, Director of Employee Relations and Compliance. Amanda Brooks was gone. Of course, the investigation had revealed even more than we'd documented: tax evasion, breach of fiduciary duty, and a pattern of fraud spanning 3 companies. She'd faced criminal charges, settled civil suits, and last I heard was working as an independent consultant from her apartment, her reputation thoroughly destroyed. The industry had blacklisted her. The woman who'd obsessed over image had become infamous. Marcus had kept his resignation promise, replaced by a CEO who'd immediately implemented sweeping reforms. Brad and Tyler? Demoted and eventually left when they realized their mediocrity could no longer hide behind Amanda's favoritism. But this story isn't about the fallen, it's about the risen. Melissa had been promoted to senior analyst, with flexible hours to manage her family needs. Tom ran the entire accounting department now, bringing the transparency Amanda had fought to avoid. Linda became VP of Sales, her experience finally valued. James headed IT security, implementing systems to prevent future abuse. Derek, free from Amanda's toxic influence, had become one of our best team leaders. And me? The board had offered me Amanda's old position, but I'd declined. Instead, I'd proposed creating something new, a role focused on protecting employees, ensuring equity, and preventing another Amanda from ever taking root at Stonebridge. They'd agreed, and even given me a larger salary than Amanda had earned. The weight jokes had stopped. Obviously. But more than that, the entire culture had shifted. We'd instituted blind resume reviews, diverse hiring panels, and strict anti-discrimination policies with real teeth. The break room had become a place where everyone felt welcome. The basement offices had been renovated, made equal to the rest. We'd even started a company-wide wellness program that focused on mental health and inclusion, not aesthetic conformity. I'd kept Amanda's white chair, the one she'd sat in while destroying careers. It now held a potted plant, something living and growing where cruelty once festered. Sometimes I looked at it during meetings and remembered that moment she'd called me a fat cow, how certain she'd been of her power. The Davidson Industries contract had been renewed for 5 years, with Mr. Davidson personally requesting I lead the account. My commission from that deal alone had paid off my student loans. But money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was the email I'd received that morning from a new hire. Thank you for creating a workplace where I feel safe to be myself. Or the mother who'd stopped me in the hallway to say she no longer feared requesting time off for her sick child. Or Tom, who ate lunch in the break room now, laughing with colleagues who saw his worth. Sarah Martinez had handled our settlements brilliantly. Everyone in our alliance had received compensation for their suffering. But more importantly, Stonebridge had become a case study in corporate transformation, featured in business journals as an example of how to rebuild after toxic leadership. I'd even started speaking at conferences about workplace discrimination, sharing our story to help others trapped under their own Amandas. My weight hadn't changed much. I'd learned to love my body not for how it looked, but for how it had carried me through battle. When I spoke at those conferences, people didn't see my size, they saw my strength. There's a photo on my desk from last month's company party. Our entire alliance is in it, along with dozens of other employees, all genuinely smiling. No one's excluded, no one's hiding in the basement, no one's eating alone in their car. It's the photo Amanda would have hated, imperfect people being perfectly themselves. Sometimes young employees ask me if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd never experienced Amanda's cruelty. I tell them the truth. I regret that she hurt so many people. I regret that it took so long to stop her. But I don't regret standing up. I don't regret fighting back. And I definitely don't regret the lesson learned that bullies in designer suits are still just bullies, and they fall just as hard when you refuse to kneel. Last week, I got a LinkedIn notification. Amanda had viewed my profile. She didn't send a message, didn't try to connect, but I knew she'd seen my new title, my speaking engagements, my success. I wondered if she remembered her words. Some of us are meant for boardrooms, others for back offices. She was right, in a way. We did end up where we belonged. I'm in the boardroom, building a better company. And Amanda? She's in a back office somewhere, alone with the consequences of her cruelty. I looked at that white chair one more time, the plant now blooming with purple flowers. Then I turned to the window, where Denver stretched out below, full of possibility. My reflection stared back, the same body Amanda had mocked, but now clothed in authority she'd never thought I deserved. I smiled, not the bitter smile of revenge, but the satisfied smile of justice served. In the meeting where she'd tried to humiliate me into disappearing, I'd found my voice instead. She'd laughed at my weight, thinking it made me weak. But in the end, I had the last laugh. And unlike hers, mine wasn't cruel. It was the laugh of someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. HR had indeed laughed last, and we were just getting started. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever faced workplace discrimination? How did you handle it? Let's discuss in the comments. Your experiences matter, and sharing them helps others know they're not alone.